Imagine, for a moment, absolute nothingness. Not the inky blackness of deep space, dotted with the promise of distant stars. No, something far more profound. An utter void, devoid of time, matter, or even the potential for existence. It's a concept our minds rather boggle at, isn't it? We are creatures of something, of substance and sequence. The idea of a true before is almost terrifyingly abstract. And yet, into this silent, featureless emptiness, the opening lines of Genesis 1 drop a single universe-shattering phrase. Let there be light. It's a sentence of such magnificent, understated power. It doesn't scream or explode, it simply speaks. And in that speech, a cosmos is born. This isn't the chaotic, fiery birth of a star we might see through the Hubble telescope, nor is it a complex mathematical equation. It is presented as an act of pure intentional will, an artist perhaps standing before a blank canvas. The story doesn't concern itself with the physics of photons or the mechanics of fusion. Instead, it focuses on the transition from non-being to being, from chaos to order, from darkness to light. It's a narrative that appeals to a fundamental human curiosity, the one that whispers in our quietest moments. Where did all of this, all of us, come from? It's the ultimate origin story, framed not as a scientific paper but as a grand poetic declaration. Whether you hear these words in a soaring cathedral, read them in a dusty library, or simply ponder them while staring up at the night sky, their resonance is undeniable. The narrative invites us to step outside our own frantic, cluttered lives and consider the very architecture of reality. It proposes that the universe isn't a cosmic accident, a happy statistical anomaly. Instead, it suggests that it was called into existence with purpose and care. This initial act of creation sets the stage for everything that follows, establishing a rhythm of separation and formation, of naming and blessing. It's a story that has captivated, challenged, and inspired for millennia, and its power has very little to do with carbon dating. The sheer elegance of the sequence is something to behold. First light, then sky, then land and seas, then vegetation, then the celestial bodies to mark the seasons. It's a process of bringing order out of a formless void, of drawing lines and creating categories. It reads like a divine tidying up, a methodical structuring of the cosmos. This isn't just about making things, it's about making sense of things. This foundational idea, that order is preferable to chaos, that there is a deep underlying logic to the universe, is a concept that has echoed through Western thought, from the ancient Greek philosophers seeking the logos to the modern scientists searching for a grand unified theory. As the story of creation unfolds, a clear pattern emerges. It's a story of meticulous organization. The world isn't thrown together in a jumble. There is a deliberate separation of light from darkness, of the waters above from the waters below. Land is separated from the sea. This is the work of a cosmic architect, establishing boundaries and creating habitats. This theme of order is deeply satisfying to the human psyche. We are pattern-seeking creatures after all. We find comfort in rhythm, in predictability, in the turning of the seasons. Genesis 1 taps directly into this, presenting a world that is fundamentally coherent and good, a place designed for life to flourish in its designated sphere. Then, after the stage is perfectly set, the story introduces its most peculiar and provocative creation, humanity. The language shifts dramatically. Everything else was spoken into being, but humans are described as being made in our image, after our likeness. What a terrifically loaded phrase that is. It elevates humanity beyond being just another creature among many. It suggests a special relationship, a unique capacity to reflect the divine. This isn't about physical appearance, of course. The idea of a celestial being with elbows and a nose is rather silly. It points surely to something deeper. Consciousness, creativity, morality, the ability to love and reason. It's the spark of what we might call spirit. This concept of inherent human value has been a cornerstone of European humanism, whether sacred or secular. The idea that every individual possesses a certain dignity and intrinsic worth can be traced back to this very passage. It's a radical notion, really. In a universe of staggering scale, filled with quasars and black holes, this ancient text insists that these funny little bipedal apes on a minor planet have a unique and vital role to play. We are not just cosmic dust. We are designated custodians, tasked with overseeing the magnificent world we inhabit. This bestows upon us not just privilege, but a profound and rather weighty responsibility. And what a world it is. The narrative repeatedly pauses to admire its own handiwork, declaring at the end of each creative day that it was good. Not just functional, not merely adequate, but good. This is a universe infused with aesthetic and moral value from its very inception. The mountains, the seas, the forests, the creatures, they are all part of a grand, interconnected tapestry of inherent goodness and beauty. This perspective invites us to see nature not as a mere collection of resources to be exploited, but as a sacred gift to be cherished and protected. It is a primordial call to environmental stewardship, a reminder that the world's beauty is not an accident, but a core feature of its design. The relationship between Genesis 1 and European culture is a fantastically complicated affair, a long and often fiery conversation. For centuries, it was taken as literal history, the bedrock of scientific and philosophical inquiry. Artists from Michelangelo to William Blake dedicated their genius to capturing its epic scenes, painting the void and shaping the first man from clay. Its rhythms and phrases are woven so deeply into our languages and literature that we often quote it without even realizing. The very idea of a 7-day week, a rhythm that governs our lives from the school run to the stock market, is a direct inheritance from this chapter. It's the ghost in our cultural machine. Of course, the rise of modern science, particularly geology and evolutionary biology, created a tremendous intellectual earthquake. Suddenly, the 6-day creation timeline seemed less like a historical account and more like a beautiful but factually incorrect poem. This sparked the infamous conflict between science and faith, a debate that rages on in some quarters today. Must we choose between the Big Bang and let there be light, or can they coexist? Thinkers like C.S. Lewis argued that trying to read Genesis as a science textbook was missing the point entirely. He saw it as myth in the highest sense, not a falsehood, but a story conveying profound truths about God, humanity, and reality itself, told in a pre-scientific language. This brings us to the great existential thinkers, like Søren Kierkegaard. For him, the scientific accuracy of Genesis was irrelevant. What mattered was the leap of faith it demanded. The story isn't a puzzle to be solved, but a truth to be lived. It confronts us with a choice. Do we see the universe as a meaningless accident, a random assortment of atoms, or do we choose to believe it is infused with purpose and meaning, created by a loving intelligence? This existential choice, Kierkegaard would argue, is what truly defines us. The story's power lies not in its ability to explain the how of creation, but in its profound exploration of the why. So, is Genesis one myth, science, or truth? Perhaps the most interesting answer is that it's a bit of all three, depending on how you define your terms. It is certainly not science in the modern empirical sense, but it is a form of truth. A narrative truth that seeks to explain our place in the cosmos and articulate a vision of a world filled with order, beauty, and purpose. It is a foundational myth that has shaped the moral and philosophical landscape of Europe for 2 millennia. To dismiss it as a mere fairy tale is to ignore its immense influence on our art, our ethics, and our very understanding of what it means to be human. In our hyper-technological 21st century world, it's easy to dismiss an ancient creation story as a relic. We have gene editing, artificial intelligence, and rovers on Mars. We are, in many ways, the new creators, shaping the world to our will with unprecedented power. And yet, this very power makes the message of Genesis one more relevant, not less. The story grants humanity dominion, a word that has often been misinterpreted as a license for domination and exploitation. But a closer look suggests a different meaning, not tyrannical rule, but responsible stewardship. A gardener tending their garden, not a miner stripping it bare. This ancient call to stewardship speaks directly to our most pressing modern crisis, climate change. We live in the Anthropocene, an age defined by humanity's impact on the planet's ecosystems. The consequences of treating the world as a limitless resource are now undeniable, from melting ice caps to raging wildfires. Genesis 1's repeated refrain, "And God saw that it was good," serves as a poignant and timely rebuke. It reminds us that the natural world has intrinsic value, separate from its utility to us. It challenges our consumerist mindset and asks us to once again see the earth not as a commodity, but as a sacred trust we are failing to uphold. Furthermore, in an age of digital distraction and virtual realities, the story's emphasis on the tangible created world is a powerful anchor. It celebrates the goodness of light, water, soil, and living creatures. It calls us to look up from our screens and reconnect with the physical world, to feel the sun on our skin and the earth beneath our feet. Technology promises to connect us, yet many feel more isolated than ever, searching for purpose in a sea of information. Genesis 1 offers a profound counter-narrative. Your purpose is rooted in your very creation, in your connection to the divine, and in your role as a caretaker of this beautiful, fragile planet. Ultimately, Genesis 1 doesn't provide easy answers, but it asks the most important questions. It forces us to confront our origins, our purpose, and our responsibilities. It is a story that can be read with a spiritual, philosophical, or even a purely literary lens, and still yield immense wisdom. It invites us into a conversation that has been going on for thousands of years. So what do you think? Is this ancient poem a source of wisdom for our modern age? A dangerous myth? Or a beautiful piece of our shared human heritage? The story has been told. Now the conversation is yours to continue.